Okay, so I am done at the Dallas Willard collection, Westmont College, and I'm here. One other place that has some crossover between my life and Dallas Willard's life. I don't really know my way around here because I've never been here, but I'll show you where it is. That's what I was looking for. University of Colorado, Boulder. So the significance, it may not be a very big one, is that my great aunt on my father's side taught here at this school for many years. She was teaching in the English department, she taught writing, she taught speech. She actually has a couple books out which I don't think anybody reads, but if I went into the English department here, she would be well known. She died in 1986, so I didn't really get to know her all that well, but Dallas Willard came here in 1984 as a visiting professor. It was the only time that he did a visiting professorship, only time away from USC other than on sabbatical. And he came here and he had a lot of time to write, he said, didn't teach a whole lot of classes. Now, this is significant this year because post 1984, that's the Dallas Willard we all know from the books and from the conferences and from the audio and all that. But the pre-1984 Dallas Willard, that's kind of a mystery, and I want to share with you some of the things that I learned about who that Dallas Willard was. But first, I've got a train to catch. Okay, so it's the second to last day here, and this metaphysics project is, oh hang on, the sun's gonna be so bright, dang it. Second to last day here for the metaphysics project, second to last day in the archives, and it's not really going as I maybe expected it to go. I was really hoping for a little bit more wow factor, at least for me. I'm finding a lot of what I expected: syllabi, handouts, transcripts, things that Dallas wrote for students about philosophy, about metaphysics, and that's all good. It's really helpful, good stuff, but it hasn't really helped me understand him in an entirely new way. I guess what I was hoping for is a little bit more of the early stuff from the 60s, 70s, stuff where he's still trying to figure out what he thinks himself. Of course, you don't really read a whole lot of this stuff while you're finding it, so maybe when I get back and look more deeply into it, it will seem more important than it does right now. But it's the sort of thing where you fly across the world and you kind of hope, well, this is going to be a big deal. And then it's not. So I'm going to spend these last 2 days down there, got some meetings, and we'll see. Last push. See if we get anything good. Maybe. I'm not sure. If you look over there, you can actually almost see the ocean today. It's a little bit more visible. And there's the library. Okay, so I may have found a rather interesting box here. First of all, take a look here. You may have heard that some of these files weren't kept in the best condition. This one here, you can see some critters have sort of noticed that there were edible portions of these files here, and they got to them. Now the archival people are putting nice, better files in here because who wants to look at that? But here's one of the things I pulled out of this file. Here, oh, it's a little bright. See, this is Intuitionism and Emotivism from Sidwick to Hare by Dallas Willard. You got an A+ on this, turning it in fall 1960. If any of you have read Dallas Willard's The Disappearance of Moral Knowledge, that there, that paper that he wrote, it's not that he used that for that book, but that is the exact same topic just dealt with 50 years previous. So here's another one. We know that Dallas Willard taught high school English after he graduated from Baylor. And this one here, again also eaten by the rats, appears to be his notebook for that teaching. Here's some of his notes for his lectures. This is actually a little test here. You can see Mr. Willard is the instructor. And this here, the school senior edition. It was for Warner Robins High School. I quickly looked through this and I did find Dallas Willard mentioned here. Harry Murray, leave my brilliant grades in Mr. Willard's English class to all those lucky juniors who will have him next year. So, I guess it was good class, at least for that student, Harry Murray. So here's something else that the rats enjoyed. You see that Essence and Existence is the title. I may have said that Dallas sometimes used papers that he wrote as a student for his own students later on, and one of the ones that he did that the most with was one that he called The Distinction Between the Essence and Existence, or something similar to that. Here is actually the notes for that. That's the bibliography, and then this is the paper which he wrote in hand back then. Looks like here you have basically his initial draft of that paper. Again, the rats liked it. And then this I just saw is that actual paper, Notes on the History of the Essence Existence Distinction. See, this is really important for metaphysics, and it actually carries through what Dallas is thinking really until he stops teaching. This is an important step on Dallas Willard's journey in studying metaphysics. So one of the things here about doing this kind of research is you look at this, and this is what Dallas is saving. This is his notes. And then it's sort of scrap paper for him. But if you look closely, this is actually his resume or CV from 1963. You've never seen one of these here. Fascinating how that's the only way that sort of thing survives. So I am in the very last folders of this rat-eaten thing, and you know, this, A Proof That Universals Exist by Dallas Willard. Now you can tell it's a blue book, very old. First sentence is, my purpose is to show that universals exist. Not a very great beginning, but universals is really one of the key, if not the key issue, which gets Dallas Willard into metaphysics. One of the things that I've learned here is that he taught a course on metaphysics at USC 28 times, at least 28 times. I think it's the course that he taught more than any other course, but this is a big deal for who he was and who he was as a theologian, as a thinker, something he really wanted to communicate to people and figure out for himself.
That's the,
Okay, so I am on a train from Denver to Ohio with a stop in Chicago. Here's my train. It's my first cross-country train in America, at least. And, well, it's an interesting way to see the country and to get from A to B. Certainly a slow way to do it in America. I am in Ottumwa, Iowa. If you can see over there on that water purification plant, means that Missouri is not very far in that direction, and that's where Dallas Willard grew up. I am at the end of my journey digging into Dallas Willard's metaphysics, and I just wanted to share a couple of the things that I learned about this. One is that Dallas Willard was very educated from 1954 to 1964. He took all sorts of classes constantly in school, in class. Gotta get back on the train here. so I thought there'd be more opportunities to film on a train. That'd be kind of cool, but it's kind of crowded, so I don't know if I'm going to really be able to do that. As I was saying, Dallas Willard, very educated, and the disciplines that he is working in, philosophy, psychology, and theology, they're all intermixed when he is studying them. So it's not this sort of siloed, now we're doing philosophy, now we'll stop, now we'll do theology. All these authors just work with all of the disciplines together, and he really benefits from that. I don't know if your impression of Iowa is just cornfields, but it's pretty woodsy here. Certainly there are lots of farmers' fields around, but lots of woods too. Another thing about Dallas Willard's education is that he took very information-rich classes, and I think I didn't have a great opinion before of the type of classes that Dallas took. I felt he was rather self-taught, but 10 years he just got book after book thrown at him, and he worked through a lot of these books and a lot of these lectures by doing outlines, by sort of taking them chapter by chapter and putting in his own words what the author was saying. It's a really powerful way to work, and you can see how he got that from studying the Bible. Another thing that stood out to me is that Dallas was very industrious and intense as a young professor. I mean, industrious, the amount of things that he produced in those early years is really quite astounding. He must have been working constantly, and from personal testimony we know that he was, but you see how much effort was put into putting together classes, to writing his own papers, and to doing his own study and research. And he was incredibly intense. I think he was a guy that didn't have, I mean, he could tell a joke and be casual, but it wasn't. Another train going by here. Dallas did not lead a lazy life by any means, or even a peaceful, casual life. Very intense man, very interested in issues, philosophical issues, theological issues, and always ready to talk about them, always ready to think about them. And then I discovered that Dallas gave hundreds of lectures on all sorts of topics and figures in intellectual history and philosophy, and even some in theology. I remember discovering an early class on American philosophy, and he gave a lecture on Jonathan Edwards, and a lecture on John Woolman, and a lecture on William James, and all sorts of other less studied figures in philosophy. But in 50 years he had the opportunity to teach on hundreds of topics, and he prepared for them all as best as he could, and to a degree some of those are all there in that collection. And I guess if anybody wants to know what Dallas Willard thinks about any major figure or topic in philosophy, and to some degree in other neighboring disciplines, it's there. We can figure it out. Well, I made it. Union Station, Chicago. Chicago is where I discovered Dallas Willard for the first time. First read his symphonies. Spirit of the Disciplines was the first that I read, I believe. And that's one of the things that I've been thinking about here, trying to understand his metaphysics. I've thought about it as the music theory to Dallas Willard's symphonies. And you can go to the symphony and you can listen to music and enjoy it. You don't have to have any music theory at all, but if you do, you will enjoy it more. And if you want to create your own symphonies, then you need to have some music theory. And that's really what metaphysics is. And so especially for people who are involved in academics and wanting to understand Dallas Willard on a master's or doctoral level, this is really very important stuff. And that's going to be it for me. Thanks for watching, and thanks for praying for us. See you next time.